Hello, aspiring mathematicians. We are going to be learning how to convert fractions to decimals and decimals to fractions. Don't forget, you can slow down the video, you can speed it up, you can pause to try the questions on your own. In fact, I recommend it. Let's go ahead and begin. So to change a fraction to a decimal, you just divide. You divide the numerator by the denominator. What that means is you divide the top number on the fraction by the bottom number. And to change a decimal to a fraction, put the number after the decimal in the numerator. Then the denominator is going to be the place value of the last digit. Remember, the numerator is top, denominator is the bottom, and the place value, well, let's remind you what that is. It's a place value chart. So remember this, where you have the millions place, the hundred thousands place, the ones place, the tens place, hundreds place, all that other good stuff. You have your decimal point. And then after the decimal point, you don't go to the oneths place, you go to the tenths place, then the hundredths place. And if you have a third decimal number, that goes to the thousandths place. So this may all sound very confusing, but when we give you examples, it'll make a lot more sense. So let's go ahead and try converting a decimal to a fraction first. So let's start by putting the fraction bar there. We have a 0.9. Now, this 9 goes on top, and because it's one decimal place, that's the tenths place. So we have 9 tenths. How would you write 9 tenths? Oh, like this, 9 tenths, 9 over 10. Easy. Now, let's go ahead and do the next one. Let's put a fraction bar right there. We have 0.88. Some of you already know this is called 88 hundredths because there are two spots, two place values after the decimal. So 88 hundredths. How would you write that? Well, 88 over 100. Now, we can't box the answer right now. And some of you are wondering why. Well, it's because you can actually reduce this fraction. You can simplify it. So we're going to do that as well. You can divide both 88 and 100 because they're both even. You can divide them by 2. So I'm going to divide the top and the bottom by 2. And if I divide 88 by 2, I'm going to get 44. 100 divided by 2 is 50. 44 over 50 is not the final answer. You can actually divide both of those by 2 as well. So 44 divided by 2 is 22. 50 divided by 2 is 25. I cannot simplify this any further. There's no number that I can divide both 22 and 25 by. Some of you are thinking, well, you could have saved time by dividing both the top and bottom by 4 and gotten the right answer. And you're correct. I did it kind of the long way. So 22 over 25 is our correct answer. 2.4. This one seems a little bit more confusing because it's got a big number in front of the decimal. You're not going to put 24 on top. What you're going to do is you're going to end up putting it in front because it's a whole number. So 4, and there's one decimal place, and that's the tenths place. So that's 4 tenths right there. So the 2 goes in front, and then you write 4 tenths. Now remember, our fraction is not simplified. You can actually divide both top and bottom by 2. So that turns into from 2 and 4 tenths to 2 and 2 divided by 2 is 2. 10 divided by 2 is 5. Can't divide either of those any further, so 2 and 2/5 is going to be our final answer. 0.34. So let's put our fraction bar down. 0.34. Well, 34, there's 2 place values, and that would make it hundredths. So that's 34 hundredths. So let's put 34 on top, 100 on the bottom. We can simplify this, divide both of them by 2 because they're both even. 34 divided by 2 is 17. 100 divided by 2 is 50. There's nothing that goes into 17 and 50, so that is our final answer. And let's do the final one, 2.35. Again, we've got a whole number, which is easy. You just put it in front, but we also have 2 decimal places, so that's going to be the hundredths place. So we put 2 and 35 over 100. And 35 and 100, a 5 goes into both of those, so it's not simplified. So let's divide both top and bottom by 5. 35 divided by 5 is 7. 100 divided by 5 is 20. So our final answer is 2 and 7/20. All right, let's go to changing fractions to decimals now. We've got 4 problems. Again, if you would like to pause and try them on your own, that's a great idea. 5/8. What we're going to do is divide the top and the bottom. Now, if we have this division bar right here, which we're all familiar with, some of you, we often get confused about which number goes where. So here's a nifty little trick. 5, fraction bar, and 8. I use the trick in and out, like in and out burger. 5 goes in and 8 goes out. So in and out. Just read from top to bottom. In and out. In and out. So in 5, out 8. Easy. So let's divide. How many times does 8 go into 5? It doesn't. 8 cannot fit into 5. So what we have to do is add a decimal point, which we bring to the top. Some of you skip this step, but that's fine. You can just bring it up to the top, and you have to add a 0. Does 8 go into 50? Well, it does. It goes in 6 times, and 8 times 6 is 48. And we subtract, and we end up with 2. And we have a remainder, so we have to keep going. So what we do is we just add a 0, and then we continue dividing. 8 divided by 20, 8 goes into 22 times. 8 times 2 is 16, so we subtract, and we have 4 as a remainder. Darn it, so we have to add another 0. Does 8 go into 8 does go into 40 5 times, and 8 times 5 is 40. Woohoo! Looks like we have 0 remainders, which means we are done. 0.625 is going to be our answer. Let's look at 9 over 20. Again, using our in and out. What goes in, what goes out? In and out. 9 is in, 20 is out. Does 20 go into 9? It doesn't, so add a decimal point and a 0. 20 does go into 90, though. It goes in 4 times, and 20 times 4 is 80. And 90 minus 80, sorry, 90 minus 80 is 10. We have a remainder, which means we add a 0. 20 goes into 100 5 times, and 20 times 5 is 100. Woohoo! Looks like we got 0, and that is our answer, 0.45. Now, before I continue, there is kind of a shortcut or another trick you can use. And this doesn't work for all of the problems. It won't work for our first problem, but it will work for our second problem. If you look at the denominator, the bottom number, and you see that it can be multiplied by something to get like a 10 or 100 or 1,000 or 10,000, then you could actually just multiply both the top and bottom by that number and get an equivalent fraction. So let me show you what I mean. You can't, 20 times 5 is 100. Right? So if I multiply the bottom by 20 times 5, I'd get 100. And if I multiply the top by 5, I'd get 45. So 45 over 100 is equivalent to 9 over 20. And 45 hundredths, oh, you know what 45 hundredths looks like as a decimal. It's 45.45. So if you feel like that's an easier method, and it does work, because it won't always work, it won't work with this one, then go ahead and use that one instead. But using this division method will always work. All right, so let's do our last 2 problems. Again, if you want to try them on your own, go ahead. 2/5. Which one goes in? Which one goes out? Remember, in and out. In and out. 2 and 5. So 5 does not go into 2. We're putting our decimal point and adding a 0. 5 does go into 20. 5 times 4 is 20. Look at that. No remainders. So that's going to be our answer. Now, some of you have realized, wait a minute, 5 times 2 equals 10. So I could just multiply the top and bottom by 2, and I get 4/10 and turn it into a decimal afterward. Yes, you can do that. Now, the bottom is going to be simple because it's a whole number 3, and it's still that 2/5. And we already know what 2/5 is. It's 0.4. We just solved it. So what do we do with a 3? Well, we put it in front of the decimal because it's a whole number. So 3.4 is going to be our answer. Again, you could have used this little other method. You can call it a shortcut if you'd like. Whichever works better for you. But that is how you convert from a decimal to a fraction and a fraction to a decimal. Go ahead and try some on your own.